All right, so this is lesson 12 of our unit, and we're going to build on what we talked about last week. On Thursday of last week, we talked about going from an equation to a graph, and then so we found the slope, we found the y-intercept, we plotted at least 2 points, 3 if you could make it work, and then we drew the line on the graph, okay? So today we're actually going to go in reverse. We're going to be given a graph, and then we are going to write an equation from the graph. So again, just like last week, quote, all we needed was slope and y-intercept. That's what we need for today. Okay, we're just going to look for slope and y-intercept because once we can find them, then writing the equation is super easy. Look at slide 3, please. Jessica, Layla up on slide 3. Nora, Kevin, Tabari up on slide 3. So slide 3 looks kind of a little busy with all the writing and stuff on here, but let's just walk through this piece by piece. Up at the top, it talks about equations being in slope-intercept form are created by using the slope and the y-intercept of a line. We know that equation, y equals mx plus b. That is slope y-intercept form because it gives us the number for both slope and y-intercept. On the slide, you also see a picture of a graph. Now, the triangle part that you see for slope is under the line. That's different than most of the problems that we have done together. But just as a reminder, you can walk from somebody's house to another house in multiple directions, okay? So if you can think of this as going, let me rephrase. The big thing that you have to remember is whether or not what direction you're going, and then also if you're going left and right and up and down. Okay, anytime you go left to right or right to left, this is always what we call the run. That is always going to be the number in the denominator. Because we went to the right, that number is positive. Then from there, we went up, and you go up 2 spaces, and again, because that's going up, that is a positive 2, and that's what we call our rise, right? Rise over run. Now, if you think about what we had done in class previously or up to this point, we typically work left to right with the work that we do, but let me just show you, as long as you record those points the exact same way in terms of the rise and the run, you should get the same answer. Look at, my run is 3 for both the green lines. My rise is 2 for both of those lines. Okay, so that is the rise over the run. In this case, the slope of this line is 2/3. That means every 2 it goes up, it goes over 3. Hey, Paula, good morning. If you refresh your Lesson 12 screen in Schoology and then open up the Lesson 12 Desmos, that's what we're working on. Okay. Now, that's just a refresher of finding slope from a graph, so that's not anything new. Let's take a look at the next slide. Slide 4. Hey, Layla, we're up on slide 4, please. Thank you. All right, so now on slide 4, oops, yeah. So slide 4 takes it the next step. Like I said, for slope-intercept form, we need both the slope and the y-intercept. So if you look here, the slope is 2/3, which is what we just talked about in that previous slide because the rise is 2 and the run is 3. Add the slope you just found into our slope-intercept form template. So that just means you're going to take the m out. Look at, let me grab a pen here. You're going to take the m out and you're going to replace it with whatever number that you find for the slope. Okay? The m comes out, the number goes in place for slope. Then it says finding the y-intercept. You found the slope of the graph, and you know that the equation so far is y equals 2/3 x plus b. We haven't found the y-intercept yet. Once we find that y-intercept, then that number is going to go right here in place of b. Okay? Next, you have to find the y-intercept. Find the y-intercept and looking for where the line crosses the y-axis. Oops, I see Mia's already done it. All right, take a look at this line. What is the y-intercept of this line? Type that in so I can see what people think. What's the y-intercept of that line? If you look closely, Mia Peterson's helping us out. Thank you, Mia. See who else is helping us. Ben is helping us. Josh is helping us. Bryant, Dylan. Not quite, Jess. Remember, y-intercept is either going to be a coordinate pair or just a plain number. Not quite. There you go, Jade. Arlene's working on it, I see. All right, so remember when we talk about y-intercept, we talk about where this line crosses the y-axis. So what I would do is I would always find this y-axis, and I would just go straight down that y-axis until I see the graph where it crosses it, and it is right here. So then you just have to ask yourself, what's that coordinate pair? And it's always going to be 0, comma, whatever that number is. So enter 0, -1. When you've done that, go ahead and move up to slide 5. Xavier, Kevin, we're on slide 4, moving into slide 5, please. Now, one of the things that I want to give you a heads up on when you're doing today's slides, Miss Luna created the slides or the activity, and with the y-intercept, you're going to use just the, not the coordinate pair, you're just going to use the number that it crosses. So if this was us, we would just enter -1. So if you get it wrong, and check to see if, she's got feedback set up, so check to see if you entered it as a coordinate pair, and if you did, just switch it so it's that second number. All right, so as you take a look at slide 5, we know that that y-intercept is -1, and so like I mentioned before, the y-intercept is actually going to replace the b of your equation. And since that y-intercept is -1, you're going to write that as y equals 2/3 x minus 1. Now, that being said, I will tell you it would be acceptable for you to write y equals 2/3 x plus -1. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just when you see that there's a negative number there, you will typically see it as subtraction. Okay? If your y-intercept is 0, you would just simply, if this was 0 instead of -1, you would simply just write that equation as y equals 2/3 x. Okay, you can put the plus 0 in there, but why? Adding 0 doesn't change the value of it anyway, so it's just extra writing. So if your y-intercept is 0, then you can go ahead and just leave it off. Okay. All right, so I am going to go ahead and scooch up to slide 6, and then I would like you to flip back to the meat. I'm going to walk through slides 7 and 8 to reinforce it one more time. Hey, we're okay. Come. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. You stay calm. It's okay. Be calm. Calm. Yes. All right. All right. Again, if you could flip back over and look at my slide 7, please, I would appreciate that. So we'll walk through this one more time. Okay, so this is our line. We're going to find the slope of the line. And remember, to find the slope, You're going to pick what we call lattice points, 2 easy points that are at the intersection of those lines. Okay, and you're going to go up and over or down and over, just depending on if it's a positive slope line, this is positive, or if the line goes down, it would be a negative slope. So again, I'm going to pick any 2 points in here. I'm just going to pick these last 2 over here on the right. So I'm going to go from the 1 point, and I just went up 2, so I know that that is a rise of 2. And then I am going to go to the right. How many was that? 1, 2, 3. And I went to the right 3. Remember, if it's up, it's positive, and right, it's positive. If it's down, it's negative. If it's left, it's negative. So again, my slope with this one is just 2/3. Okay, and I can enter my 2/3 as a fraction like that, or I could use the square root key if it's there. Take a moment, and I'll open up slide 7. Take a moment and copy what you see on my slide 7 onto yours, so you have slide 7 to go back to as an example. Hey, Michaela, buddy, we're up on slide 7 now, please. Tabari, slide 7. Paula, slide 7, please. Thank you. All right, when you are finished copying slide 7, click the raise hand button so I know we are ready to move on. Why? If you wanted to say hi to the kids, you could come over here and I'll lift you up and you can say hi to the kids. Oh. You're just doing that out of spite. All right, again, click thank you. Click the little raise hand button when you are done with number 7. I'm going to move on in 30 seconds. All right, flip back over to the meet, please. We will walk through slide 8. Yep, thank you. Unclick your little raise hand button. Appreciate some of you are in a little bit better habit of remembering than I am. So, okay, so we just talked about the y-intercept of the graph. The y-intercept is where that line crosses the y-axis. So I'm literally just going to start at the top of that y-axis and go down until I see if that line meets it. It is right here. There's my y-intercept. Now, here's what I know for the ones that have feedback today. Miss Luna has it set up where it's just the single number, not the coordinate pair. So I'm going to put a -1 in there. And then like we talked about, remember, we've got that equation of y equals mx plus b. And then we are simply going to take the m out and put the 2/3 in its place and take the b out and put -1 in its place. So our equation should be y equals 2/3. Oops, use the equation button here. I'm going to enter y equals 2/3 0 over x and then -1 because it's -1. Okay, pretty straightforward. Go ahead and slide 8 is open. Go ahead and enter your slide 8. Again, the big idea here is to identify those slopes and y-intercepts. As you are copying this, I do want to point out that you can also pick points that are like not the 2 points next to each other. And as long as you count correctly, you should get the exact same answer for the slope if they were those 2 points connected. So we know the slope of this line is 2/3. So what if I pick this point right here and this point? I can still do my rise and run. So this is my rise. And if I count, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I went up 6. And then I know my run. Go this way. And if I count, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I would just write my fraction of for my slope as 6/9. And if you think about what you know about fractions, well, that's not green. If you think back to what you know about simplifying fractions, 6/9, 6 and 9 are both divisible by 3. And so this actually simplifies to 2/3. So you do not have to pick points that are right by each other. They can be skipped between them, but as long as you count correctly and simplify your fraction correctly, you're golden, good to go. Bryant, question, or are you done? Here's what I can tell you for today. It's not wrong if you use it as a coordinate pair. I just know that on the slides that are upcoming here, on the feedback ones, if you enter it as a coordinate pair, it's going to say it's wrong. So for today, just enter not the 0, but obviously enter that second number that we typically do for the y-intercept, and you should be good. Okay. All right, so go ahead, and again, if you have not copied this on slide 8, go ahead and do so, and I'm going to stop the pacing. So the rest of today's lesson is for you to get all the way up through slide 15, and then make sure that you double check that you have all the slides done, and then look back at last week's Desmos 11 and worksheet 10, just to make sure that worksheet 10 got posted on your DUR.